So last night I went to see the Doctor Who series finale in cinemas, and I just wanted to make a quick video talking about how much fun I had seeing the episodes on the big screen, and also giving my initial thoughts on the series finale, Empire of Death. I hope you enjoy. So the first thing I want to mention is just how much fun it is to watch Doctor Who episodes around Doctor Who fans. I'm just so used to watching the episodes on my own, it's quite unusual for me to be in this big cinema screen just watching the episodes with other fans. The last time I actually saw Doctor Who on the big screen was for Peter Capaldi's first episode, Deep Breath. And I just have such fond memories of seeing it with my dad and brother, seeing all the little extra scenes that the BBC filmed as part of the cinema screenings. And I think that's part of the reason I enjoy the episode Deep Breath so much, just because I have such fond memories of seeing it in HD on a big screen. Even though I didn't really speak to anyone whilst I was there was one nice man that sat next to me and my dad. We just had a mini conversation. I asked him if he saw the Pyramids of Mars. He said he saw it the weekend before. So that was quite nice. We didn't really speak that much, but considering I'm a bit antisocial a lot of the time, it's nice that I spoke to one new person at least. I think in the room I was in, which was screen 1, so it had the biggest screen, which I really liked, there was about 50 odd people, I think, and me and my dad sat right in the middle in the comfy, expensive seats, so that was really good, had lots of leg room. And then as for the other screening room, which is the one where kids and teenagers were allowed, I think I counted there was about 100 people. So it shows that the show is still quite popular. Yes, it's not as if the whole rooms have been booked, but come on, it was 11 PM at night on a Friday. You can't blame people for wanting to get to bed or hit the clubs or do whatever people do on a Friday night. So really it's just good that 150 people were sad enough, like me, to actually pay money to see an episode you could have seen for free at home. My gut reaction is just really enjoyable, really good effects, made even better seeing it on the big screen. Honestly, I won't shut up about that. Doctor Who is made for the big screen, and I really, really hope Russell T Davies continues to have series finales shown in cinemas, because you bet I'm going to be there every time. I can't put into words how much more enjoyable the episodes become watching it around fellow Doctor Who fans, watching it at midnight or late at night, and just seeing the HD-ness and the visuals and how much louder everything is being in a screening compared to just watching it on a small TV with headphones in like I normally do. Yeah, I love watching Doctor Who in the cinema. This was my second time doing it. Hopefully it won't be the last. Going back to the episode though, just to give my initial thoughts on it. Like I've already said, really enjoyable, but I do wonder, is that largely because I was so swept up in the atmosphere of everything? But that aside, I think it was a really dramatic and exciting end to the series. Sutekh, I thought the effects on him were great. I loved the fact that Gabriel Wolfe returned to voice Sutekh. I'm ashamed to say, prior to a few days ago, I'd never actually watched Pyramids of Mars before. I knew who Sutekh was, but when we got that cliffhanger last week, dare I say it, I didn't find it as exciting as a lot of people. And I think that's partly because, like I said, I'd never seen Pyramids of Mars before, so I didn't really understand how much of a threat Sutekh is. But more importantly, I think it's the fact that it had already been spoilt that Sutekh would be the cliffhanger. And that's something I find really strange, actually. I think this started as far back as episode 1, but people were speculating, saying, oh, what if Sutekh was the finale villain? And I think, from what I saw at least, it started as a joke. Everyone was joking, saying, because they do this every year, people are always saying, oh, what if it's this classic villain coming back? What if it's this one? And I swear Sutekh's name has been mentioned in the past, but it's always been people joking. They've never been adamant that it is Sutekh. And yet, something's happened over the past few weeks. I think it's been because the more footage we've had from the episodes and the more details that's been revealed, the more it's become likely that Sutekh was the villain. What I'm trying to get across is, prior to going into episode 7, I was about 60% sure that Sutekh would be the villain. Something I loved about Sutekh, in addition to the visuals and just how freaking enormous he was, I loved the imagery of him wrapping himself around the TARDIS. Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson did fantastic performances as ever. Yet again, the Doctor cried, which is becoming a recurring theme, and I might have to make a video on that, actually. I also loved the ending, where Ruby realises that she has to put her family first, essentially. Yet again, Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson did tremendous performances. The only thing I didn't like about that, though, is it keeps with Russell T Davies' recurring theme of how he tends to always get rid of companions at the end of the series. And I just think it's particularly a shame nowadays, with the fact that there's only 8 episodes. I think that's a plane. Hopefully you can't hear that. Ruby really hasn't had much of an opportunity to shine. I still like her as a companion, and yeah, like I keep saying, Millie Gibson is a tremendous actor and she's done really good work in the role, but it's just a damn shame that there's only been about 9 episodes that Ruby's been in, and of those 9, 2 of the episodes were Doctor Light episodes. We had 73 Yards where the Doctor only appeared for like 2 minutes, and then even though the Doctor and Ruby appeared throughout the following episode, Dot and Bubble, they were in a more supporting capacity. They weren't the main characters. So in terms of the episodes where they've actually been the main characters and had a lot of screen time, we've only had about 7 episodes. So because of that, even though I like Ruby, I'm not as attached to her and her relationship with the Doctor as I could have been if they had a 13 episode series, if that makes sense. What else did I like? I liked the fact the universe ended. I quite like it when stories go dark and have stakes. Something I didn't like, though, is it's quite similar to The Flux. I know it's not Russell T Davies' fault, but I just wish either he'd waited a few more years to do a storyline like this, where everyone dies and turns to dust, or I wish Chibnall never did his Flux storyline. And that's something that crossed my mind when I was watching the episode. It did remind me of Avengers Infinity War. The fact that, you know, in both Doctor Who and the Avengers, you have this universe-shattering event where characters turn to dust. Memory TARDIS, I've got to give that a shout out. Loved how that was featured, and I love the fact that it explains why the Tales of the TARDIS mini-episodes came about. I did find the scene where the Doctor's speaking to the kind woman, I think she's called, dare I say it, but I don't think that was really necessary. It was something like a 5-minute scene, and the whole purpose of it, yes, we got a bit more information as to what the Death Wave had done to the universe, but the ultimate point was to give the Doctor a spoon. So I don't think the scene needed to be as long as it was. I do wonder if Russell T Davies put that scene in to make people wonder if she's Ruby's mum. Maybe that's part of the reason the scene went on for quite a bit. Because I did find it quite unusual that this kind woman's baby got quite a lot of emphasis, even though the baby was dead. But yeah, so I don't know, that scene took me out of everything. Something else I loved was how Sutekh was defeated. I loved the effects of the TARDIS dragging Sutekh through the time vortex. That looked even better on the big screen. I suppose it is a bit of a cop-out, for want of a better word, that Sutekh being in the time vortex is what undoes all the death he caused. But I don't necessarily mind it, to be honest. What else can I say? The other big resolution. Who Ruby's mum is. That's the big one that everyone's going to be talking about. I think initially I was a bit disappointed that Ruby's mum turned out to be just an ordinary woman. And yeah, I think my heart did sink a bit when the Doctor said, oh yeah, she's just ordinary. But then as the episode progressed and you had all those scenes that followed of Ruby finally meeting her mum, the mum being accepting, and then ultimately she's the reason that Ruby's not staying on as a companion, I can sort of see what Russell's going for, I think. What I don't like though, and it's actually my dad that first drew my attention to this, because I think I got so swept up in the excitement of everything, I didn't see this glaring plot hole. It's the fact that if Ruby and her mum are both ordinary, why did it snow every time Ruby talked about her mum? And I really, really hope there's more to tell from Ruby's heritage. I mean, I doubt it, to be honest, because I think the way the episode ended, it did seem like Russell T Davies was putting a definitive end to Ruby's storyline about her heritage. But I hope that's not the case, because if that's the case, why the bloody hell did it snow every time she talked about her mum? To me, that was always an indication that either Ruby or her mum has something alien or not quite human about them. So if they are both human, there needs to be an explanation as to why it always snowed. I think some people online have said it's because of Sutekh, but I don't believe that, to be honest. Sutekh had no bloody clue who Ruby's mum was, and it makes no sense as to why he would cause there to be snow. So that's something that I hope gets explained at some point in the next few years. We also don't know who Mrs. Flood is. I was disappointed that this episode didn't establish who she was, but I think reflecting on the final scene, to me at least, it's fairly evident that he's basically saying to the audience, stick around, because this is a question we're just going to keep coming back to, and I think we've just got to be patient in regards to her, and then fingers crossed, hopefully, before Russell T Davies leaves the show again, we'll finally find out who Mrs. Flood is. Actually, here's something that I found out this morning. I went on Twitter, and some clever fan out there has noticed that in a lot of Mrs. Flood's appearances, she's been wearing clothes that are what previous companions have worn. So in one episode, she was wearing clothes that looked like what Clara was wearing in Face the Raven. And then, oh God, this is going to show my lack of Classic Who knowledge. What she was wearing at the end of Empire of Death, that was what a previous companion wore, I think Victoria, potentially, Sorry if I've got that wrong. I mean, it could just be a coincidence, but Russell's such a clever man. A lot of things he incorporates in his episodes aren't a coincidence. Yes, we're going to have to wait and see for that. It was a bloody weird ending for the episode, though. The fact that the whole series ends with Mrs. Flood, who's been a minor character, and her directly addressing the audience and saying that the Doctor's got terror to come. You could argue it's sinister, and okay, yeah, I did take it to be quite sinister when I first saw it, but it is also quite camp as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know, if I was the one editing or writing the series finale, I personally would have ended it on the emotional moment of the Doctor leaving on his own and Ruby and her family looking at the TARDIS dematerialising. I wouldn't have had that extra scene panning up to Mrs. Flood. Anyway, moving on from Mrs. Flood, because I've nattered on about her way too much. Something else I don't think I've mentioned yet is I really liked the references to the episode 73 Yards. There was 2 that I counted. So the first reference was Ruby explicitly saying the title of the episode.
The TARDIS has a perception filter, so it doesn't get noticed. It just sits there kind of unseen because it casts a field around it at 66.7 meters exactly.
73 yards.
How do you know that?
I don't know, I just do.
That I find really interesting, even though it wasn't strictly relevant to how everything's resolved in the series finale. That's now opened up all sorts of possibilities in my mind as to what was going on in 73 Yards. I think I do need to watch the whole episode again, both the finale and 73 Yards, before I can properly establish what my theory is. But yes, it does make me look at 73 Yards in a different light, which I'm glad about, because I still don't know where I sit with 73 Yards, to be honest. Part of me adores it, and part of me is annoyed that a lot is left unexplained. And this ties in with the next thing I was going to say, actually. So the other reference this episode had to 73 Yards was the Prime Minister, Roger Ap Gwilliam, I think. What I really appreciated from this episode mentioning Roger Ap Gwilliam is, it was just a throwaway comment, but I'm so thankful for Russell T Davies for actually writing this in his episode. As the Doctor, Ruby and Mel enter the office where all the DNA's kept, the Doctor says something like,
I was in this building for the overthrow of Roger Ap Gwilliam.
And this is why I'm so glad that this was mentioned in the episode, because this was a huge plot hole I had for 73 Yards, and I think quite a few other fans had this as well. What happens at the end of 73 Yards is obviously Ruby goes back in time and effectively everything that happened in 73 Yards never happened. But the issue is, Ruby was the one who stopped the Prime Minister from blowing up the planet. So her not being there with the spooky woman that causes everyone to run away means there's no one there to stop Roger. And that's part of the reason I didn't like the episode. But now, I don't have to worry about that, because Russell's basically saying in this series finale that it doesn't matter that 73 Yards ultimately didn't happen, because in the normal timeline, it was the Doctor that stopped Roger. So, yeah, I think my opinion on 73 Yards is slowly improving. But going back to Empire of Death, what else is there to say? I still don't understand how Susan Triad fits into it. I know the episode did try to explain it, and I believe the idea is that Susan was always there wherever the TARDIS landed, but I think this is something I need to rewatch before I properly talk about it. I really liked the effects of Sutekh's minions, having like the skulls protruding out of the faces, especially at the end of The Legend of Ruby Sunday. if I was a kid watching that, I would have been terrified and having nightmares. And I love it when Doctor Who's scary. So good on you, Russell T Davies, for doing a nightmarish cliffhanger to episode 7. Mel was good. I like the fact that Russell keeps bringing classic companions into the new series. I think that's all I want to say, really. It's just my initial thoughts on the episode. I don't know where I'd rank it compared to other finales yet. I think it beats all of Jodie Whittaker's, to be honest, because I was never really much of a fan of Chibnall's finales. But yeah, I need to have a proper think about where it ranks in comparison to Russell's previous series finales and also Stephen Moffat's finales. I think I'm going to leave it there now because I've been nattering on for way too long, and I think I'm going to have to cut a lot of this video out. So thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it, even though I did ramble on. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. Please do let me know in the comments what you thought of the episodes and where you watched it. And I will hopefully see you in a future video. See ya!